Hello and welcome to Elmer Time number 13. This is Jeffrey, AD7LN. Merry Christmas, 2022. Today's video, we will cover digital voice, so stay tuned. This is Jeffrey, AD7LN. Welcome back to the radio room. Hello everyone, it's been a while. Glad to see you're back. Glad to see I'm back. I took a little hiatus in order to do some repairs on the house and get some family things done. I especially wanted to get some roof repairs done prior to our northwest winters. They can be pretty harsh. And so don't be alarmed if you hear a weather alert alarm go off, because we're due for one starting tonight, maybe tomorrow. We may get a weather watch or warning any moment. So anyway, we're going to talk about digital voice. And I know that there's a lot of videos already out there on YouTube for digital voice by many other capable ham radio operators. A fellow ham that I know requested that I give my take on digital. So here we are. So starting off with digital. We should say, starting off with FM. FM communications have been around since, I'd say probably 1938, between 1938 and probably 1941, for VHF through UHF two-way communications. Now, I'm not talking about 88 to 108 FM stereo broadcasting. I'm talking about FM communications back and forth between two stations, 1938 to 1941. And everything's been great using FM. However, I'm not sure if it was due to somebody in the commercial world or maybe the military decided that we need to have a different version of FM. And as far as I can tell, as far as the three that I'm going to talk about in this series, DMR, D-Star, and Yaesu System Fusion. Let's put a little YSF up here. Sometimes also referred to as C4FM. DMR has been around since 2005. And it is a fully commercialized setup. And then it was adopted by ham operators around 2014. D-Star started in late 99 to 98 and then came out to everybody about 2001, specifically for ham operators. And then Yaesu System Fusion, that was 2013 when they came out with that. But anyway, why have digital voice if we already have FM? We have had FM for quite some time. We've had relatively little issues using FM for two-way communications. and that includes having a repeater on the hill and allowing for handhelds and mobiles to communicate long distances through the repeater system and over hills. Well, it seems that through digital voice, compared to analog AM and FM communications, digital voice, you use less bandwidth in the transmission and a better signal quality, and it's greater power efficiency, so the battery in those little handhelds can last much longer. So there's the benefits to digital voice, and that was probably a big selling point to either the commercial industry, such as Motorola, which is a big name for commercial two-way communications, or be it military. The U.S. military, it's hard to say. Anyway, so now that digital voice has come into the world, let's put this for 2014. It was commercial in 2005. Now, who makes these radios? These different types of radios? These are three different types of digital voice modes. Basically for DMR right now, it's either Motorola or every two-way radio manufacturer under the sun in China. There's too many to list here. There's Retrievus, BTEC, Bofang, Anytone, Alinco, TYT, Radio Oddity, Zastone, Radtel. I think you get the picture. They're all Chinese manufacturers. They do the DMR. D-Star. Kenwood and ICOM. It originally was for ICOM. Kenwood jumped on the bandwagon. Also Flex Radio has modules for certain radios to add D-Star to their setups. It was the Japan Amateur Radio League that introduced the D-Star digital voice mode. And for C4FM, YSF, that is System Fusion, that is entirely Yaesu, and I'm going to probably spell Yaesu wrong. I keep getting the A and the E backwards. I think this is right. So, you've got a tremendous amount of Chinese manufacturer two-way radio systems that make DMR modes, Kenwood, ICOM, Flex Radio for D-Star, Yaesu for the C4FM System Fusion. Now let's talk about the processes to use each individual mode. Let me check the battery on the camera here. Camera's still good. Okay. Now the processes. To start off on ham radio, through either one of these modes of digital voice. For DMR, you require a personal assigned ID number that has to be issued to every individual ham around the world. And you have to do that through the internet. I believe it's Radio ID inc.com or something like that. And what this does is it puts your ham call into a radio ID database so that every single person that has DMR will download a database to install into their DMR radio. And once they've downloaded that program, it enters everyone's call sign that's using DMR, their location, and their name. Also, for DMR, you also have to create what's called a code plug, which is another program that you have to manipulate to basically tell the DMR radio what to do and how to do it. So when you get a DMR radio like an anytone, you have to get the anytone programming for it and make it learn basically what you want it to do. And every single little facet of the operating process has to be programmed into the program and then downloaded into the anytone radio so that when you operate it, it knows what it has to do for each individual channel, and if there's an offset, if there's a code, there's a color, and so on and so forth. So it's pretty in-depth as far as operating a DMR radio, just the programming and getting the individual ID number ahead of time first. And once you have all that together, then you can operate it and everybody will know who's who and what have you. For D-Star, there's also a registration required through dstargateway.org, and then you have to program the radio with the corresponding info. dstarusers.org is a great place to go for that information if you plan on using D-Star. As far as the programming, it is less than DMR, but there is some required, and also a download. Once you've programmed the D-Star side of your ICOM or Kenwood, and you're using the radio on D-Star, you will see that people that are using the D-Star on their end will come up on your screen with with their call and their GPS position, location, or possibly a small message. For C4FM, Yaesu System Fusion, there is absolutely no registration required. All you have to do is when you get your new Yaesu, whether it's handheld or mobile or whatnot, or even the bases, you just enter your call sign into the radio through one of the menu processes, and that's it. And then you're ready to talk on Yaesu System Fusion, digital voice, digital data, whether it's point to point, whether it's through a repeater, whether it's through a hotspot, any of these modes. Let's say this handheld operator wants to speak with this handheld operator. And let's just say they're on DMR right now. So let's say that there's a repeater in your area, or in my area. I'm on my DMR handheld. I'm speaking through a repeater up on top of a hill. Well, that repeater on top of the hill through DMR is also connected to the internet. And so it will connect to the internet and travel all the way around the world to wherever any other DMR setups are at, and if it's on the same reflector or room that it's transmitting and receiving on, that you are on, then you can speak to that other person on DMR that's wherever, Japan or Germany or wherever. There's hundreds and hundreds of different reflectors or rooms. There's also another way to do it besides repeaters, and that is, say there aren't any repeaters in your area. So you go out and get yourself a small hotspot that connects to the internet in your house. And that replaces that repeater that I was just using. And you can talk back and forth to your hotspot and still connect and speak with that fellow operator halfway around the world. He also can do the same thing, he or she can do the same thing by having a hotspot on their end as well, instead of talking through a repeater. So, and the benefits to using a hotspot is that it's very local. It's just a small transceiver, very low power, that's programmed for transmit and receive on a certain frequency, so that you can speak to your handheld all around your house, within your house, on low power, and you can run this very small antenna if it's UHF. So it's a very compact little setup, and you're hardly using any transmit power because you're set on low power, so the battery lasts all day for a few days, and you can speak to people all around the world. And there are many different chat, if you want to call them chat rooms, for ham operators for DMR, D-Star, and Yaesu System Fusion. Hundreds and hundreds of them all around the world. So this becomes an item that many new ham radio operators tend to like, since they don't, say for United States, they're in technician class and they don't have a lot of HF privileges yet. They find that the digital modes kind of satisfy that urge to speak with people all around the world. And as far as the ease of operation, you'll find that Yaesu is probably your easiest way of getting on through digital voice. You would use, like I said, the digital repeaters or your hotspot, and then you could use your Wires X for Yaesu. You press the Wires X button on your radio, and on your newer radios, it will come up with a display of all the different rooms that you can enter into to speak with different operators within that chat room. Now, as far as the different internet linking systems for each one of these three, for DMR, there's the DMR MARC, there's Freestar. These are just some of the linking systems that you will encounter if you're going to be messing with the DMR radios. So some of these things may come up in your searches. There's Brandmeister, which is a big one. And not sure if I'm spelling Meister right. And so there's Free DMR. And I think there's TGIF. And there's always new ones coming up. So if there are new ones out there that I didn't write down, please, I apologize for that. For D-Star, you will find various REF reflectors. You'll find DCS, reflectors, and XREs. They're all reflectors. That's their terminology for their chat rooms, if you want to call it that. And then for Yaesu, there's just reflector networks, just different networks, and they're all obtained through the wires X. I don't know why I put wire. Not sure why I put the X first. That was weird. My brain's working too fast. That looks horrible. Anyway, so through the wires X programming that's already in your radio from the factory, you would transmit, the key down the microphone, press the wires X button momentarily, let go of the microphone, and then a wires X menu will appear on your screen on your newer radios, showing you all the different rooms that you can enter into to talk. Now, the results, as far as DMR, there's around 4,000 connected repeaters on DMR daily, and about 15,000 hotspots. So there's plenty of people to talk to on DMR. As far as D-Star, I don't have any numbers, but I'm sure that the numbers most likely are very similar to DMR for your people that are connected both by repeater and hotspots. And many people, many ham operators will have more than one hotspot in their Radio Shack, so they can pick up a DMR radio and set that down and grab a D-Star radio and monitor two different talk rooms at the same time. Now, as far as hotspots, there are many different manufacturers out there. There's Shark makes a hotspot called an open spot, which is very popular. I think revision number 4 is out now. There's the Zoom spot. There's the Raspberry Pi setup, which those are usually small computers that are in kits that you build with the transmitter. So if you're into building kits, you might check out the Raspberry Pi setups if you're going to get into a digital mode. There's also the Skybridge Plus. There may be some other ones out there. These are just some examples. And they all can transmit and receive whichever mode you're going to be planning on using through the programming of the hotspot. Now, a thing that's come up while these have been introduced into the ham community, these 3 modes, and there are more modes than just these 3, but these are the main 3 I'm going to talk about because they're the big 3. Say somebody that has a DMR setup in their house wants to talk to their buddy over in Japan that only has a Yaesu System Fusion setup. Or that somebody here wants to talk to their buddy in Japan and they only have D-Star. They don't have a System Fusion setup. Buddy in Japan only has System Fusion. Well, this kind of thing has occurred a lot. Many digital voice operators are wanting to know if there's going to be some sort of crossover setup at some point through maybe a reflector system, or maybe the hotspot themselves can do a crossover. And there are some hotspots now that are doing the crossover, or cross mode, as it's called now, is a cross mode. And I don't know why I put that there. For instance, the SkyBridge, Plus, will do DMR to Yaesu System Fusion. And this is a hotspot. So if you've got DMR set up, not only can you do regular DMR to DMR, you can also program it to also do some Yaesu System Fusion on the other end for that buddy in Japan that you want to talk to. I believe the OpenSpot 4 does DMR to D-Star. So you have to do some research as well if you plan on getting into a digital voice mode and there are no repeaters in your area that accept the digital voice transmission, then you'll have to get into a hotspot. If you get a hotspot, think ahead. If you want to jump into more than one mode, there are some hotspots that you can manipulate to get to cross mode. Let me check on that battery on the camera real quick. Well, so far so good. Another thing, being that DMR is commercial and wasn't designed specifically for ham, like these two are, or amateur radio, the commercial was definitely designed much different than the D-Star and C4FM digital voice modes. DMR was designed so that they could manipulate the one frequency, whatever frequency they were on, within their certain transmitted bandwidth. So let's just say this is their transmitted bandwidth, that they could have 2 full conversations going on with 4 individuals, 2 and 2. They split up the transmit in a time division multiple access setup where 2 separate conversations can be on one frequency. And that was the main idea here, is that they could squeeze more efficiency out of the radios and get more talking in on the same channel. And there are 3 tiers to DMR. There's tier 1, 2, and 3. Tier 1 is your conventional high power licensed that you'll find everywhere. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, I messed up on that. Tier 2 is conventional. Conventional high power licensed, like you would find in many handhelds in a business setting. Tier 1 is low power, unlicensed. And there's no repeaters used on this Tier 1. It's just point-to-point, low power, most likely very small handhelds, HTs. Tier 2 is conventional, licensed, high power. Both base stations and high power mobiles and handhelds. And then Tier 3 would be your trunked setups. Your trunk systems. Motorola has a lot to do with DMR still. They're still the leading manufacturer, I believe, of DMR radios through their Moto Turbo. Motorola. Oh gosh. Moto Turbo. I believe that's what they call it. That's their version of their DMR products. But even though it's labeled now as commercial, there is a ham version, obviously. So. Just making a mess of that, aren't I? Anyway, if you decide you want to get into DMR, even though it's probably the most technical of the three, as far as programming and getting the radio to work, I would suggest going to a YouTube video page called Bridgecom Systems. They have extensive, in-depth videos of how to program any-tone radios and the code plugs, and that'll give you a lot of information about how to do the code plugs for your own setup and your own situation. And D-Star, of course, go to dstarusers.org. That looks horrible. Anyway, that's for D-Star. And there really isn't anything for C4FM or Yaesu System Fusion, because other than maybe updates through Yaesu's website for the radio itself, because all you have to do is program your call sign into the radio and that's it. So as far as the big three here, my experience through them, I own an Anytone, the high-end HT that has APRS both in and out, with the highest, I think it's 5,000 memory, something like that. D-Star, I have experience through the IC705 and the THD74A. Yaesu FT5D. So I've got experience with all three of these digital modes, and they all sound great. It's said that Yaesu System Fusion has the best digital audio sound, but really all three are so close, so similar, it's really difficult to say that one's sounding better than the other. Yes, there are digital artifacts. If the signal is out of bounds, out of range, you can get artifacts and extra noise in the signal with the voice. So digital voice isn't perfect. It is cleaner and clearer when the signal is within bounds, and you do have capabilities of using data on Yaesu and D-Star. You can send and receive data, pictures, messages through both of these modes, C4FM and D-Star. Which one do I like? As far as the digital voice mode itself, hard to say really. I probably would just go with the simplest version, that's Yaesu's, because there's nothing involved other than typing in your call sign into the radio and then operating it, and that's it. And when you're on a digital mode through C4FM or Yaesu System Fusion, what'll come up on the screen when you're speaking to somebody through Yaesu System Fusion is it'll be the person's call sign and the distance between you and that other operator on your screen, on your radio. Many of these systems will incorporate some sort of GPS. Some radios will have a GPS built in, some will require a GPS to be plugged into the radio. All of these radios here have a GPS built in. And that makes it so that when you're mobile, moving around, the other operator can immediately see how far away you are from them, so on and so forth. So, and if it has a APRS mode, which this one does, and this one does, analog APRS is a lot of fun as well. I tend to enjoy APRS and AX25 digital analog communications. So, if there's anything else that you guys can think of as far as digital, let me know. Other than that, I'll probably jump into something a little different on our next video. But I want to thank you for sitting around and watching my little presentation here on digital modes for ham radio in the United States and elsewhere. Until then, thanks for being here. This is AD7LN, Jeffrey, from Elmer Time. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.